Yeah, we are going to measure the size of the particles in four ways, and based on this we are going to term them as what type of particles are. The first one is called as the coarser particles. Coarser particles are those particles whose sizes are measured in inches or in millimeters. So once we dig the earth crust, we get lumps of solids, and manually we are going to break them and then see that we make a uniform particles whose sizes can be measured in millimeters or in inches. That kind of particles are called as coarser particles. After that, the second category is fine particles, in which the size of the particle is represented as mesh numbers. We have studied this in our pyrates process. We have studied this in the manufacturing of the cement, that the size of the particle can also be measured in mesh numbers. Suppose you have my 200 mesh. In one cube, we are going to drill 200 holes, equidistant holes. So if the particle is able to pass through it, then we call it as minus 200 mesh particles. If the particles cannot pass through it, we can call it as plus 200 mesh, provided it satisfies certain conditions. I will explain you that. So minus 200 means what, sir? It is the size of the particles which can pass through a mesh whose number is 200. Then the next category will be very fine particles. Very fine particles are those particles whose sizes are measured in micrometers or in nanometers. So if you are able to measure the size of the particle in micrometers or nanometers, then what will happen? We will have, we call those particles as very fine particles. And the last category is ultrafine particles, whose sizes are measured in surface area per unit mass. So their unit will be millimeter square per gram. Now, why we brought this new tool, new unit to measure a very low sized particles below nanometers? Because one thing we should understand, that when we try to crush a particle, its surface area increases. So what is the meaning of the statement is, you take a perfect sphere whose diameter is 1 centimeter. Now if you crush it, it will become n number of particles. So this n number of particles, surface area will be more. So the prime aim of side direction is to increase the surface area. Now to understand this logic, let us conduct a small experiment. Let us take two glasses of pure water, in which I am going to put sugar. So in the first case, what I will do is, I will purchase ordinary sugar which is available in the form of crystals. And the second case, these crystals I am going to put in a mixie and then make extremely fine powders. Now I will take equal quantities of both the sugars, crystal sugar and very finely crushed sugar. So when I take these spoons and put it into the water and then see after a certain time, definitely we will note down that in the first glass, the amount of sugar which we have put, which is in the crystals form, some have dissolved and some is left out like that. Remember, I did not mix it. But in the second one, if you see, you find that majority of the sugar has dissolved into the liquid phase. So here, if the size of the particle is small, its surface area will be more, and thus more amount of surface area is exposed to water, it enhances the process of dissolving. So that is the reason why when the size of the particle is too small, we will find its surface area per unit mass. These are the four different ways by which we can measure the size of the particles and then term them as coarser particles if their sizes are measured in inches or in millimeters, fine particles if their sizes are measured in represented by means of screen sizes, and very fine particles if we measure their sizes in micrometers and nanometers, and ultrafine particles if the sizes are measured in millimeter square per gram. That is the standard unit of measuring the size of ultrafine particle. Then, with this, let us go to the next concept. Now we will see how we can apply some rules and formulas for a given sample. So here we have mixed particle sizes and we start the size analysis now. For this what I have done is, let us take m kgs of uniform particles of diameter dp. So for example, you take spherical balls or some uniform sized particles, and then what you do, sir, you take m kgs. And one more condition is what? In that we have a number of particles, but all their sizes are equivalent to dp meters. Then let the density of the particles is denoted by rho p kg per meter cube. And we know that the density of the particle is given by the formula mass of the particle divided by volume of the particle. With that above formula, we will modify it and then write. Yes. We'll write volume of particle is equal to mass of particle divided by density of the particle. Thus, this will become meter cube. Yeah, meter cube. Then, let the volume of each particle is given by Vp, meter cube. Okay, each particle I am talking about. Now, what is this? This is the total mass of the particle, and Vp is the volume of the particle, each particle. And let us say there are n number of particles are there. So now we know very well, if we assume that the mass of each particle is equal to mp kgs, then I can write that density of the particle is equal to mp by rho p vp. Therefore, mp is equal to rho p into vp. This is again I am going to write it. But you know very well that the mass of n number of particles is equal to total mass. So here in this equation, I will replace this one. So mp is equal to what by this equation? Rho p by vp. So I bring it here and then write the mass of the total particle is equal to total number of particles inside the sample into density of each particle into volume of each particle. Thus, I modify this equation and write, hence, the total number of particles in a sample can be found by this equation. What is that equation, sir? Mass of the total sample. Remember, it is very easy to measure the mass of the total sample. Okay, and density will be given to us in the standard textbook because it can be the ores of CaCO3, it can be the ores of pyrites, or it can be any material which is known to us. Its density will be given to us in the table. Now we should know the volume of each particle. With this, we can find how many number of particles are there in the sample. Okay. Then we know yesterday already we have derived this equation. Sphericity is equal to 6 Vp dP by Sp. So if you remember this point, yeah, here we have derived it. Sphericity is equal to 6 into volume of the particle divided by diameter of the particle into surface area of each particle. The same thing I brought it here, and now I will modify this. Sp is equal to, so Sp will go this side, sphericity will come this side. So S 6 Sp is 6 Sp divided by 6 dP divided by dP into sphericity. Okay. Now the total surface area of the particle is, let us assume that the total surface area is capital A. Now we know one more thing, that each particle surface area is Sp. Why it is Sp, sir? Because we are assuming that all the particles are of uniform size. So hence when their size is same, their surface areas will be same. Suppose if you take surface area of a sphere, it is given by 4 pi r square, a constant value. So since we are assuming that all the particles are uniform in their sizes, so hence the surface area is also fixed. So now the total surface area of the sample is equal to number of particles inside the sample multiplied with each one. So this is the value Sp. And we know that N is given by this formula, Sp is given by this formula. So if you substitute this and then write, you get capital A is equal to 6m divided by sphericity into diameter of the particle in, sorry, density of the particle into diameter of the particle. So this is the formula for the total surface area of the particle. We have one more thing called as specific surface area. One more thing called as specific surface area. What is specific surface area? Its unit is millimeter square per gram. Okay, millimeter square per gram. So means what? Millimeter square per gram means what? The total surface area of the particles divided by mass of the total particles. That is the meaning of it. So now I hope you understood that what is the reason for us to measure the measure the size of the particle in terms of millimeter square per gram. So that is nothing but AW. AW is called as specific surface area of the particles, and its formula is equal to the total surface area of the particles divided by total mass of the sample. So hence its unit will be m square per kg. M stands for meter square, kg unit. So above equation, if I try to apply for n number of particles, okay, for example, we divide these particles into n number of groups, okay, and in that we modify this equation 3 and then write it as AW 60p. Okay, don't worry. Again, I will explain you this, the meaning of this in the same class after some time. Don't worry about it. So this is the formula for AW, okay, which we are supposed to use it to do the problems in our next coming classes. Then, where I is the increment number, and then you have in that particular increment what is the mass fraction and what is the size of the particles. Okay. So next, n is the number of the given increment. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4. How many groups you have divided? That groups you should write it. Now d bar p is the average size of the particle in that particular group measured in meters. Then we know that we are supposed to represent the average particle diameter. It is measured in terms of different ways. The first method, these are all our empirical equations, remember this. Volume surface mean diameter is given by d bar s by 1 by summation of I is equal to 1 raised to n x over d bar pa. X is mass fraction d bar pa. Similarly, we have mass mean diameter given by this formula. Similarly, we have the formula for volume in diameter. This is one method of expressing the size of the particle. Then one more method is arithmetic mean, T bar n. Then similarly the last one is, yeah, the total number of the particles inside the sample also we are supposed to know it. This is given by the formula NW is equal to 1 by A rho P d bar V raised to 3. Now what is this exactly? We take handful of sand and we can measure the number of the sand particles, remember this, by using this formula. Okay, don't worry, I will explain all these things once again in the same class today only. I am just telling you these are the ways by which we can represent the size of the particles. First one is average surface mean, sorry, volume surface mean diameter. Second one is mass mean diameter. Third one is volume mean diameter. And the next one is arithmetic mean diameter. And finally, how to measure without counting, how to measure how many solid particles are present. That is given by this equation. And here we have a new concept called as capital A. So small a. What is this small a? Small a is called as the volume shape factor. What is this volume shape factor? Is, for example, you take a sphere. You know the diameter of the sphere can be measured by means of a vernier calipers. Please note down and then write it as 1 centimeter. Now you know the formula, pi by 6 dp raised to 3 is the volume of the sphere. So what you do is you take n number of particles. Particle number 1 diameter is 1 centimeter. Particle number 2 diameter is 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter, like that you do it. Now what you do is you plot a graph. On x-axis you keep the values of diameter raised to 3. On the y-axis what you do, you find the values of volume. Volume how you are going to find, sir? By the formula pi by 6 dp raised to 3. So you get a graph. Okay, the slope of the graph is called as volume shape factor. This is an important bit question in the Viva examination for those students who get sieve analysis as an experiment. I will explain once again. Let us consider there are 10 particles are present. Each and every particle will have a diameter 1 centimeter, comma 2 centimeter, comma 3 centimeter, comma 4 centimeter, up to 10 centimeters you have the diameter. Now I already assumed that all the particles are uniform in nature and they are perfect spheres. So hence we can also calculate what is the volume of the particle. Make another column and find out all the volumes. Then on the x-axis you mark dp raised to 3. On y-axis you mark what's that? That is volume of the particles. And you get a graph, straight line you are going to get it. The slope of the graph is the value of small a. Remember this. This is how we are going to fix the values of small a for a given material. Remember this. Like that we can go for n number of things. But don't worry dear children, the value of small a, which is called as volume shape factor, will be given to you in the problem to do the problem as a given data. So how to find this value? This is the method. Okay. Then the next one is how do we measure the sizes of fine particles? So first one, if the size of the particle is from coarser particles. What is coarser particles, sir? Particles whose sizes are measured in inches or in millimeters. From such a state to 44 micrometers, we can be using dry screening. Dry screening means what, sir? Without using any water. For example, in Telugu we call as jallada. In Hindi we call as channi. So we put some materials over it and then mother will be doing some types of magic she will do with that, and then we find that some materials will go through it, some materials will not go through it. So this is the act of screening, okay, or it is called as sieving. Okay, very good. So now the dry screening can be carried out from particles whose sizes are measured in millimeters or in inches to TO2 to 44 micrometers. We can do dry screening, and we can use a fluid and then do the wet screening for up to 10 micrometers. So from 44 micrometers to 10 micrometers, we will be doing wet screening.
So you know very well that the particles will move inside the liquids at different velocities based on their environment. And we know here we introduce a term called as sorry, we introduce a term called as terminal velocity. What is terminal velocity? It is a maximum attainable velocity of a material in a given liquid or in a given fluid. For example, you take two materials are present. They are belonging to the same case, that is CaCO3. Let us think that both the particles belong to CaCO3. One particle is 1 centimeter, second particle is 1 millimeter. So if you drop it into the fluid, definitely CaCO3 specific gravity is more than that of the water. 1 centimeter particle will travel at a faster rate when compared to 1 millimeter particle. So based on these differences, we separate the particles into different identities. So this concept we will use in the manufacturing of sugar industry, in the sugar crystal formation. If you see the crystals, all are of uniform sizes. How it is possible? Do you think that we take Misri or Kalakanda and then take a file and then make a small crystals? No, sir. Machines are there which will make these kind of sugar crystals continuously without the involvement of human beings. How, sir? Because you know very well, 1 centimeter particle will travel at a faster rate, and then 1 millimeter particle will travel at a slower rate. 1 nanometer particle may not come down, it may dissolve into the water. So based on these kind of arguments, we design the system for the sugar production. But this concept is taken. For this class, what is the meaning of this? What is the concept? We are supposed to apply the wet screening if the size of the particle is between 44 micrometers and 10 micrometers. But there are certain materials are there whose sizes are below this also. How to measure their sizes? First one is optical microscopy. So with the help of an optical microscope, you can take the particle and there will be screening. You can do the screening. You can take the particle and measure the size of the particle and then note down, keep it separate and take the second particle. So like that, one by one, you will be doing it. So this will be applied to only R&D departments. What is this? So this will be applied to what's that? The R&D departments only. And the second one is gravity sedimentation. So you know just now I said that two particles will move inside the liquid with different velocities based on their sizes provided their densities are constant. Okay. So by this also we can separate them. Then next one is counter device. Now what is this counter device? We have an orifice meter. Imagine the orifice meter experiment, and then at the inlet, at the outlet, means what? When the fluid is entering the orifice plate, when the fluid is leaving the orifice plate, there you keep two electrodes, and then what you do, sir? You pass an electrolyte through the orifice meter. Now you bring this small particle and then introduce into the electrolyte. So as this is flowing inside the electrolyte, as the passes through the orifice, what will happen, sir? The mass of the electrolyte will be decreased, and that will be shown as a decrease in the resistance or ammeter readings. It will be reflecting it. So this is the example of a counter device where we use our orifice meter. We use an electrode. Two electrodes are there at the inlet and outlet of the orifice meter, and then we will be passing an electrolyte. So when you pass an electrolyte which is not having any amount of solid particles, the reading will be noted down. But when you add these small particles, the readings will affect. So these are nothing but indirect methods of measuring the sizes of very fine particles. Then we have the light scattering techniques. So we know that a particle will exhibit a property of scattering the light. It all depends upon its surface area. So this is one more technique to measure the sizes of very fine particles. Remember, these are not direct methods, they are indirect methods. Then second one is sedimentation in the centrifuges. Now what is the sedimentation in the centrifuges? In chemical technology too, you will be studying biotechnology. There you may be seeing the differences between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Okay, so each cells will be moving inside the culture with different velocities. And remember, cell means what? Its sizes are very small. So centrifuges are available in biotechnology labs, and they are used for what purpose? Isolation of microorganisms. Means what? Separation of one particular population from a group of population. Okay, so there we use this technology. And the last one is, of course, is the use of electron microscopy. So with the help of electron microscope, we can go further beyond very small sizes, and then we can measure the sizes and then keep it. Remember this, all these procedures will take a lot of time. They are restricted to R&D departments only, not for any commercial uses. For commercial use, we will be using only one thing called as sieving or screening setups. So now let us see the screening setups and come back to all those formulas which we have seen again. So sieve analysis. What is sieve analysis? It is a unit operation in which particles are separated based on the differences in their sizes. So we know that characterization of a solid particle can be done by means of size of the particle, by means of shape of the particle, by means of density of the particle. So now let us take the example of a size. So when we have a group of particles are having different sizes. So we are supposed to separate them as single identities in small groups, and then assume that in that particular group the densities are same. Means what? In a class of 60, 50, there will be topper will be there will be second topper will be there will be third topper will be there. So how to divide them? We will make one category, that we wanted to divide this entire 60 students in 6 parts. Rank number 1, first rank holder to 10th rank holder in one particular group. Then similarly, the 11th rank holder to 20th rank holder in the second group. So like that we divide them. And once you divide them, what will happen? Definitely the last rank, that is from 51 to 60th rank holders and first to 10th rank holders, there will be some difference with the reason. So what is the difference in our subject? It is the sizes. So hence, what is sieving? Sieving is a unit operation in which we try to separate the solid particles based on the differences in their sizes. Okay. So in our house, everybody may be having Jallada. That is the best example of a sieve, or in some textbooks it will be called as screen. Actually, screen means what? This one, the one which we see it here. So this is the shape of a sieve, where if you see from the top, you see this kind of mesh like the things. Sorry. This mesh can be made up of wire, metal, rods in case of ETP. Different that we'll see in our 14. Don't worry about it. But for this class, we have a sieve, and when you add the feed to the sieve, which are having n number of particles, and all the particles are having different types of sizes. And once you put it on a sieve, what will happen? Two things will happen. The particles whose sizes are small than these clear openings, they will come from the bottom as undersized particles. And the particles which are cannot pass through this clear opening, they are called as oversized particles. So if you do the material balance across the sieve, we can write material entering from the system is equal to material leaving in oversized flow or as oversized particles, and plus materials leaving as undersized particles. So if we have one sieve, we have one inlet and two outlets. Please remember this. Then if you go to the thing specifications, so if you see the side of the screen, okay, every sieve will be having on its peripheral area a label will be there. So when you go to our MU lab, you will see that a label will be there, as your notebooks will be having labels. Is not like that. Every sieve on its peripheral area will have a label, And what will be there on the label, sir? Yes, it will be first one, mesh number. In the mesh number, there are two categories are there, ASTM and BSS. ASTM stands for American Society of Testing of Materials. BSS stands for British Sieve Standards. So in our textbook, we follow all the ASTME standards only. So hence, a right mark is there for this and a wrong mark is there for the BSS, because the standards of Britishers are different when compared to universally accepted. Whatever the Indian standards code is there, that was totally taken from American standards, and then we are using it for our purpose, whether it is designing of the reactors, agitators, electric motors, anything. We just follow the American standards. So in the American standards of testing of materials, the specifications are given to it, and then we are going to follow it in our subject also. Very good. Then the second one category will be the clear opening in millimeters. What is the meaning of clear opening, sir? You see here, you see that a mesh like thing is there. You try to take one thing, so you find it is a cube or it is a square. It is a square. A square will be having four sides. Sorry, a square will be have. Oh my God, what happened to this? Yeah, a square will have some gaps are there in between. That gap is called as clear opening. And here I am going to represent the clear opening in millimeters. So every screen will be identified with its mesh number under ASTM, comma, clear opening. Okay. So clear opening will be 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter. For this purpose, we have a standards. Okay, and these standards are given in McCabe-Smith under Appendix 20 called as Taylor Standard Screens. I'll tell you that also, don't worry. So based on the Taylor Standard Screens, which is published in the American Society of Testing of Materials, if you want to make a screen in India, you have to follow those divisions, those specifications, those dimensions, those material of constructions. Then you have right to type ASTM mesh number 10. That's the meaning of it. So this is about the yeah mesh number, clear opening. Then with one sieve, we have two outlets. As I said just now, with one sieve, there is only one feed is there. This is only one sieve setup. With one feed, you have two outlets you have. Now suppose if you have two sieves, okay. So here you have sieve number 1, below you have sieve number 2. Okay, these are the two. So now once I put a feed, the feed is having some known quantity of solids, m kgs, and it may have different type of particles. Now the first one will be, what will happen, some solids cannot pass through the clear opening of it. They goes out from the top as 1 kg per second, and some particles can pass through this. Okay, some particles can pass through it, that is 2 kg per second. I'm sorry, the armor should be down like this. And the third one will be, which can pass from the bottom of the sieve number 2 also, it has 3. So if you have two sieves, there are 3 outlets are there. So like that, n plus 1 outlets will be there. So it all depends upon you, how many times you wanted to divide the group. Just now I said that 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 51 to 60. It is making 6 categories. Now if you want to go, no, I want to go for fine tuning of the students' IQ. I want to go for 12. Then what I will do? 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 50, like that I will make. So it all depends upon you, how many groups you wanted to make out of this system. So based on that, you use one less and then make out the screen, because two sieves will be giving 3 outlets. So if you want to make 50 outlets, so you know how much we are going to use it. So it all depends upon you, how many groups you are going to divide it. So now suppose if I want to go for 3, 1, 2, 3, then one inlet is there. So how many are there? 4 outlets are there. So like that, depending upon your requirements, you can go for increasing the number of sizes. But remember, all the sizes are now brought or brought from ASTM book. Okay, so now with one sieve, if you have only one sieve, then the product is called unsized fractions. Yes. So for example, if you want to divide the class into two fractions, the best method is based on gender. You say girls come this side, boys go that side. It is a beautiful division where we can do it. But suppose if I say that now based on IQs you would try to divide, means what? 1 to 25 will stand this side, and 25 to 60 will sorry 1 to 30 will stand on left hand side, and 31st rank to 60th rank will stand on the right hand side. Now what kind of division is that? Is not a division, because the topper is also mixed with the 30th rank holder, and here the 60th rank holder is mixed with 31st rank holder, so that will not give a proper mixing. So that is called as unsized fractions. So what is the meaning of this is, if you see the first sieve, then I said that here you have 1000 kgs of the material, and here you have a variation from 1 nanometer to 5 centimeter. You have all different types of particles are present, and if the clear opening is 3 centimeter, then what will happen, sir? If the particle size is less than 3 centimeter, then only it will pass through it. So along with 3 centimeter, 1 nanometer particle is also carrying. So means what? There will be variation will be there with respect to sizes in the undersized particles. Similarly, this can be there in the oversized particle also. So as far as possible, if you go with this approach, it is called as unsized fractions. Suppose if you wanted to reduce the variation of this, then what you should do is you should try to increase more number of sieves. So if you increase more number of sieves, what will happen, sir? The variation, the size variation decreases, and thus the particles are termed as sized fractions. Suppose you say 1 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, like that you make n number of packets inside the classroom based on rank holders. Then definitely will say the allied group of this class is topper number 1, topper number 2, topper number 3. And of course we have some name for the students who are there in the rank 58, 59, 60. So then we have divided them perfectly. So based on that we can do further operation on them. Yeah. Now, what we should do now, first point is, let us take the given sample. Now, listen carefully from now onwards. We are going to take a hand. We go outside and then take sand. We collect the sand, and in the sand, we should see that as far as possible, the variation of sizes is very high. Means what? We have bigger stone, smaller stone. Like that, you take a mixture of a sample. Okay, and then what you do, weigh the given sample, regular or irregular. Better, because you are taking up from outside, definitely you have all irregular solids only. What are irregular solids? Solids whose shapes are not clearly defined are called as irregular particles. What are regular particles? Regular particles are those particles whose shapes are clearly defined. Okay, so this is the meaning of it. So you take 1 kg of the sand particles. Now what you do is, next step, you arrange the sieves. You have sieve setups with you. You arrange them on a desk. You keep a desk and then arrange it. You arrange in such a fashion. But what is the procedure you are going to arrange? As you are going from top to bottom, the clear openings should decrease. Because remember the statement, every mesh will have a specification. Every mesh will have a specification, and on that specification, two things will be written. The first one will be the mesh number, and the second one will be clear opening. So like that, you think that there are 20 sieves are available to you of different meshes and different clear opening. But how do you arrange them? You arrange them in such a fashion that as you go from top to bottom, the mesh numbers are increasing and the cleared openings are decreasing. Please remember this. Means what? The topmost one which you are going to keep, its clear opening will be very high or the biggest one in the group, and its mesh number will be automatically smaller one in the group. So as you try to go from top to bottom, you arrange that the sieves The mesh numbers are increasing as you go from top to bottom, and the clear openings are decreasing. This is the fashion how you are going to arrange the size of the arrange the sieve setup before we do a unit operation called as sieving. Arrange the given sieves in the order as we go from top to bottom. The clear opening millimeter should decrease and the mesh number should increase. A sieve with no opening is called as pan. So we have in the sieve setup, when you purchase a sieve setup, he will give a pan. A pan means what? It will not have any amount of meshes. It is a closed one. So generally we keep it at the bottom. So if the size of the particle is smallest than all the screen openings, that will be collected in the pan. So hence pan should be kept at the bottom. Okay. So this is how we are going to arrange the sieve setups. Then place the arranged sieve setup on a sieving machine. So in our laboratory, we have a sieving setup. So what we do is, after arranging the screens, just you keep it on the table of the sieving instrument, and then whatever the quantities of the sample which you have taken, you will add it from the top. Open the lid and then add it and then close the lid. So once you close the lid, then you start the machine for some amount of time. So it will do all types of magic. It will try to rotate it, lift it, fall it, all sorts of sound will come, and it will try to save it perfectly. And you try to give 3 to 5 minutes. Then after that, what you do is you have to take down the readings. So my God, what is this again? Going to first page. Yeah. So after 3 or 4 minutes, what you do is, then you stop the machine and then take out the sieve setup, and now you are supposed to take down the readings. Switch off the power supply to the machine, because whenever we use the machine, then only we should give the power supply to it. Then rest of the time we remove the power, so that the machine will not give any electric shocks, no actions will take place. This is called as general good manufacturing practice. Okay. Then switch off the power supply to the machine and then keep the sieve setups in an appropriate place without disturbing. So you should take out the lid, the entire setup, and then we have a working table in our lab. Keep it on it. Then what you do is take the topmost lid, and then the first sieve you take it from the top, and then note down the specifications, and then we have a weighing balance. Put the entire mass which is collected on the top into a mass balance, and then you note down the mass of the material which are retained on the top of the screen, because on the first screen some particles may not pass. Okay. So note down the material, note down the mass of those materials. First step is what? Note down the specifications of the scene, and the second one is what? You are supposed to collect the mass of those materials. After taking these two readings, similarly follow the same procedure for rest of the sieves. And even in the pan also, you are supposed to note down all the readings. Then after noting down all the readings, then we should go for the further calculations. Okay. So when we want to do the further calculations, let me tell you what we are supposed to do it. So now let me see, take this Excel sheet. Now this is called as the Taylor standard screens. So on the first column you have mesh number, the second column you have clear openings. So here first one starts with 26.67. Unfortunately, they did not give the mesh numbers here. And then it comes, as you come down, what will happen? The clear openings are decreasing, and now from here the mesh numbers are increasing: 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 5, 6, like that. So if you go to the down, so what will happen? The last one will be 200 mesh with a clear opening of 0.074 millimeters. So there is an important bit question is there. What is the basis for the Taylor standard screen? So you should write the basis for the Taylor standard screens is 200 mesh with a clear opening of 0.074 millimeter. So this is the lowest mesh which is available to us, which is written in ASTM. Afterwards, they have discovered so many meshes depending upon our requirements, but that was not reported in the ASTM. So in the ASTM, the first basis is 200 mesh with a clear opening of 0.074 millimeters. That is the clear opening. Then if you go top, 170 millimeter. Clear opening is increasing. See, bottom one is 0.074, the second one is increasing. So like that, when you go top, what will happen? The clear openings are increasing and mesh numbers will be decreasing. So here, this is the first one. This is called as Taylor standard screens, where you are supposed to represent. What is this again? Headache. Very good. So this is how we are going to do it. Now here, how we are going to construct this tabular column is also very important. So if you find that in a regular pattern, that is if you take 3.5, sorry, 4, 6, 8 like that, then the ratios of clear openings is in the range of 1 is to square root of 2. So if you divide this value with the square root of 2, you get this value 3.327. And suppose if you want to introduce in between, you can do it, no problem. But ASTM says that follow the ratio. Ratio is 2 to the power of 1 by 4. General is what? 2 to the power of 1 by 2. The clear ratios of two clear openings is in the ratio of 2 to the power of 1 by 2 or square root of 2. But suppose if you want to introduce in between, then you can do it. But what is the ratio, sir? It is 2 to the power of 1 by 4. So if you have a clear opening of 1, then what you do, if you want to go in between, then you divide it by 2 to the power of 1 by 4, and that should be the clear opening of that mesh which you are going to put your extra. So universally, the ratios between two clear openings is 2 to the power of 1 by 2. In between, if you want to introduce, it will be 2 to the power of 1 by 4. This is also an important bit question. Now, go to the second sheet. Now, these are the commonly used mesh numbers. Standards one. 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, etc. etc. Please remember this. These are the commonly ones, which are standards. And here we can maintain the rule. That is, the difference between the ratios between two things will be square root of 2 to the power of 1 by 2. In between, if you see the here it is 4, 6, 8. But here, if you see the first one, 4, 6, we have 5. So they have introduced a new one. And then in between 8 and 6, we have 7. So when you wanted to in between, if you want to introduce in between, what we should do is we should go for 2 to the power of 1 by 4. If not, go for 2 to the power of 1 by 2. Please try to understand this difference. And all these things are called as Taylor standard series. Please. Then the next one will be the clear openings. This is also given to you in the problem. And the last one, as I said, it is the pan. And pan will not have any openings. So hence I will write not available, or we can write 0, so no problem. Then the next column is what, the mass. I told to write the masses, isn't it? So one example I gave you here. All the masses I have written here. For one experiment I have conducted, and then I have written all the report of all the masses. So you will be writing this column. And then you will be writing this column also. Okay, this will be known to you. And then after performing the experiment, you will be writing this column. Mass of the solids also you are supposed to write it, because these three readings you are supposed to take it. Then what we will do afterwards is, next column is average particle sizes. This is very important. Now, what is this? This is clear opening given in the mesh. This is the average particle size. So what is average size particle size? Now on the mesh number 4, some particles are present. What is their mass? 35.65. 35.65 grams of solids could not pass through mesh number 4. What is the meaning of it? Their sizes are more than 4.66. So from safety point of view, I will assume that, for my mathematical easy point of view, I will assume that their sizes are greater than 4.699. The children examiner will see this value and then this value particularly. Okay, very good. I will explain once again. What is this 35.65 grams? 35.65 grams of solids could not pass through mesh number 4, whose clear opening is 4.69. Suppose if their size is 3, what will happen? They could have easily passed through this 4.699 millimeters. But they did not pass. So hence we say that all the particle size will be around 4.7. But definitely there will be an argument will be there. Sir, there can be some particles whose sizes may be greater than 4.7 also, no problem. But for our mathematical easiness, I will assume that all the particles should be slightly greater than this one. But tomorrow, if they remove this one, then what will happen? These two particles, that is 35.65, will be added to this, and what will have? What will happen to this value? This will not be 4.03. It will be 3.327. No, you put as 3.4. So this is what the examiner will check. So the first screen is important. The first screen, the particle size will be one bit greater than this value. So it is 4.699. For safety point of view, I will take it as 4.7. Similarly, before this 200 pan, after the 200 pan, we have 200 mesh, we have a pan, isn't it? Now 200 mesh clear opening is 0.074. In pan, what particles will fall? All those particles whose sizes are less than 0.074 millimeters, they will be falling into this 0.073 in the pan. So I will assume that all the particles which are there in the pan, definitely their sizes are in the range of 0.073 millimeters. There can be one more argument, sir. There can be one particle whose size is 0.007. Yes, it is possible. But for mathematical easiness, I am going to write only one value, that is 0.073. Now, how do I fill this value? Please listen carefully. 4.013, it is nothing but the arithmetic mean, that is 4.67699 plus 3.327 divided by 2. This is how I get this value. So how I am going to get this value of 4.013? I will get it by means of arithmetic mean of these two values. That is 4.013 is equal to 4.699 plus 3.327 divided by 7. Similarly, how do I get the value of 2.845? I get it by 3.327 plus 2.362 divided by 2. Okay, similarly, 2.007, how do we get it? By the arithmetic mean of 2.362, okay, plus 1.651 divided by 2. So like this way. So please remember this L shape. So this length is arithmetic mean and assign this value to this base. Similarly, 1.168 plus 0.833 is divided by 2 is equal to this one. So like that, I will be constructing the values of arithmetic average particle sizes. I am going to get it like this. So after getting this table, the next one will be what I am supposed to do is add those total sample, because I should know what is the total quantity of the mass which I am going to used actually. So if you add everything, you get this numerical. Now the second column will be what, sir? Mass fraction of the solids retained on the sea. So how do we get this value? Remember, how do we get this value? 35.65 divided by 47066.01 into, sorry, we will give this particular value. Similarly, 159.37 divided by this total mass, you will get this value. Similarly, 539.42 divided by this total mass, so you know mass fractions, you did in CPP, no? So here we are going to write the mass fractions. Now with this, you have to write, after constructing of this table, the second column, cumulative mass fraction of oversized particles. How do I write it? First, directly take this and then put it here immediately. Then you add these two. Cumulative means what? Add continuously. 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, like that. That is called as cumulative effect. So first value directly add it like this. Then the second value, add these two and then write it. Third value, add all the three and then take it. All four, and so like that you construct all, add everything and then put it here. Then you have one more thing, cumulative mass fraction of undersized particles. So this is very easy step. 1 minus this value, 1 minus this value, 1 minus this value, 1 minus this value. You get here cumulative mass fractions of undersized particles. Then after this, what you do is you try to plot a graph between on the x-axis you will have average particle sizes, and on the y-axis you will have mass fractions. Okay, so on the y-axis you will have mass fractions, on the x-axis you will have average particle size. So if you plot a graph, dear children, you are going to get a graph like this, and this is called as differential analysis graph. This is called as differential analysis graph. And the second graph will be drawn between, on the first, you take a paper like this, and here you have a scale y-axis. You put all those values. On left hand side, you put all those values, but on the x-axis, you have same, that is the average particle size. That is called as cumulative graph. So now, if you see the theory part, remaining part, then we'll have differential analysis graph. On the x-axis, we'll plot d bar p, that is average size of the particles, and on the y-axis, we'll have mass fraction. And yeah, and the next graph will be cumulative analysis graph, drawn between 1 and 2 versus same thing, average particle sizes. So here, if you see here, what is 1? That is cumulative mass fraction of oversized particles. So here you have in all these values, you take it and then plot it on this line. And then the other part on this line, what you do, sir? You try to plot the average mass fraction, cumulative mass fraction of undersized particles. But on the y-axis, on the x-axis, the same thing, that is average particle size. So these are the two ways of representing the size of, the screen analysis pictorially or by drawing a graph. Now you know what is mass fraction. So now if you go back to the equations which we have seen, okay, formulas. I said I will explain once again. So d bar s is equal to what, sir? Xi divided by d bar pi. Now how to find xi by d bar pi? Simple thing. You know one thing. What you do is, you know the values of xi, isn't it? Now you make another column. Xi divided by this d bar pi. That is average particle size. So what is, you make another column. Here what is this? Xi divided by d bar pi. What is this? 0.008 divided by 4.7. Then the second one will be 0.0034 divided by 4.03. So like that you make one column, and then once you make this column, what will happen? Yes, add all those things and invert it. You get the value of d bar s. So this is how we are going to calculate the value of d bar s. Similarly, if you want to find d bar w is what? Xi by d bar p, direct multiplication. So what you do here? You make another column here, and then what you do, sir? You take mass fraction, that is 0.008 into 4.7, that will become xi into d bar pi. Second value 0.0034 into 4.013, that will become second value. Like that you construct, add them, and directly the value is given as d bar w. Similarly, the next one will be what? D bar v, that is volume in diameter. Formula is xi by d bar pi raised to 3. So here what you should do? Yeah, you make another column. Xi, these are the values of xi, divided by this value raised to 3, and then add them. Then you get the values of d bar v. So this is how we are going to get the values. In the next class, we will be seeing one problem, and then we'll go to the doing such kind of problems in the next time classes. Thank you very much.